Happy September and welcome back to our weekly Lunch and Learn series. We missed you during our August off, and we are so happy to be back with you today. Today's program is Electric Boats and the Future of Maine's Working Waterfront. It is such a joy to have so many of you with us live today, and hey to everybody who is watching this recording on YouTube. We are delighted to have you in the Lunch and Learn universe too. Let's see. Maine's Working Waterfront, just adding, okay. Maine's Working Waterfront is such a core part of our economy and our history and our personality as a state. As we transition to a clean energy future, the waterfront and its technologies need to transition too. There is an innovative new course that grew out of a collaboration between Kennebec Valley Community College, Midcoast School of Technology, and the Island Institute that created a first of its kind electric boat course here in Maine. We are so excited to have the coordinator, Yvonne Thomas, who's the Senior Community Development Officer at the Island Institute, with us today. Yvonne is going to walk us through the hands-on technical training opportunities, the growing use cases of electric boats for aquaculture and commercial industries, and what it means to work on an electrified waterfront. Thank you for being with us today, Yvonne. My name is Kathleen Neal. I am the Senior Director of Policy and Partnerships here at Maine Conservation Voters and Maine Conservation Alliance. Our organizations represent more than 13,000 members and supporters dedicated to building a just, thriving future for all by acting on the climate crisis, protecting the environment, and safeguarding our democracy. MCA does that by bringing people and organizations together to educate, inspire, and advocate. And MCV by advocating for equitable policies, holding elected officials accountable, and winning elections. Since 2020, this weekly online Lunch and Learn series has helped us advance all of those goals, creating a shared space to explore our environmental and social history, our policy priorities, the climate action movement, and more. It has also helped us build connections with so many of you. Thank you for being part of this Lunch and Learn community, and welcome back after our summer break. A few notes before we dive in. We're going to hear from Yvonne first, and then we'll tackle all of your questions in the Q&A session at the end. You don't have to wait, though. You can send questions to me or to Maggie Summers through the chat whenever they occur to you. We'll synthesize them and ask as many of them as we can in the session following the presentation. We ask that you not send messages directly to our speakers because we want Yvonne to be able to focus on the presentation, not the chat box. If you have any technical difficulties today, Maggie is the one to help you out. Send her a message through the chat and she will work her magic. This event is being recorded and the video will be posted on our website later this afternoon. It'll also go up on our YouTube page, which has a whole bunch of playlists that will help you zero in on other programs that may be of interest. Thank you again for joining us. And Yvonne, I will turn it over to you so we can dive in.
Great.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction. And it's really great to be with all of you today to talk about electric boats. I have a couple of confessions to make right off the bat. The first one is that I am an educator. I am not an electric boat specialist, but in working with many other really smart people who are specialists, I've learned quite a bit about electric boats, and I'm excited to share what I have with you today. The other admission I want to make is that I had all these elaborate notes for this presentation, and because of the technical issues and also a failing printer, I am winging it. So the notes are up here, but there'll be some of the technical horsepower this and amps that I'm just not going to be able to share with you right now. I can scramble during the Q&A to find some specific information because I have it. I just don't have it right in front of me. So with that, let's get into it. So first, just a little bit about Island Institute. We are a 41-year-old nonprofit based in Rockland, Maine. We do community development in a lot of different ways, but our primary constituents are Maine's 15 unbridged islands and all of the coastal communities. And we've got a staff of about 60 people, and we really work with communities, as our mission statement says there, to help tackle some of the biggest problems and opportunities facing the coast in terms of both climate and the economy, and of course, how all of that affects communities. So why are we so excited about electric boats? Let's talk about that. First, I want to put this in the context of the work that our Marine Economy Center is doing. The Marine Economy Center is working to help decarbonize Maine's working waterfront in a number of different ways. And the promoting electric outboards, particularly for work boats, is a big part of that. And I just love the statement of this center. The vision for the future is, and I'm going to read it out loud, even though you can read it to yourself, but from dock to deck, Maine's aquaculture and fisheries sectors are the greenest, cleanest, and most resilient in the country. So that's what Island Institute is really trying to do, and electric outboards are a part of that. When we think about how we're working to electrify Maine's working waterfront, there's several different ways that that's happening. And I'm very excited to see my colleague Leah Morris here to help explain some of this, because she's working more on all the aspects of the electric boat work, and I'm, other than the course, which is the part that I'm working on. So Leah, I don't know if we can unmute Leah, but I'll talk through this briefly, and then Leah, please feel free to jump in, unless you want to just take it. I think I'll start. So a big part of this is just building the relationships, and this is true for this electric boat work, but it's really a core part of how Island Institute works on pretty much any project. Who's in the space? How are the people that are working in the space able to bring doing to island and coastal communities? In this case, I think it's about understanding supply chains. It's making relationships with people who are who have the electric boats, who are the companies that have them, the businesses that want them, the funders that are interested in supporting this work. One of the ways that we've done that is by launching a demonstration workboat, and we'll talk about that in a couple of slides, but we have a boat that we're really paying close attention to and doing a lot of work around collecting data through that boat to help better understand how this really works and how businesses can benefit from it. And then, of course, there's the development of the short course, which I will talk to you about in a couple of slides. Leah, anything to add there?
Good afternoon, everybody. I think one just quick thing I would add that is in development right now, which has been informed by all of the things that are here on the screen, is that we're in the process of developing a memorandum of understanding with Efficiency Maine Trust around an innovation pilot having to do with outboards and commercial applications that should bring additional boats and sort of metering and data collection equipment to the water in summer of 2025. So we've had a lot of success through demonstration boats and small grants, getting sort of motors in different use cases across the coast. But that will be, I think, hopefully an accelerant and something that really helps us dig into the data around emissions reductions and cost savings for businesses.
Great, thank you. just to give a little bit of background about electric outboards. So it can seem like this new thing that's coming that that we haven't seen before, but really electric outboard motors have been around for over 100 years. There's companies such as Elco that have been in this space, especially for recreational boats, for over 100 years. So it's really not new. What is new is all of the interest, and what's new for us is real interest, like we keep saying, in how we can get these electric outboards to be used for working waterfronts, for work applications. It's wonderful having them in the recreational space, and that's really important. But we're really looking at how do we get them on the work boats. So that's a big part of it. There are several companies in Maine and nationally and internationally, new small startup companies that are doing really amazing things with electric outboards. And then there are also some of the bigger companies that have outboards that you see on any waterfront that are starting to get into the space as well. So it is old and it's new. In terms of emissions, Leah gave me some a great stat, which I can read it when we get to Q&A, or unless you have it handy. But the bottom line is that gas-powered outboards are incredibly polluting, way more polluting even than cars. And so having electric outboards, even electric outboard motors that are powered by electricity from a coal plant, is going to be more efficient and better for the environment than the regular old outboards that are out there now, gas powered. So that's a big part of it. Also, having been in them, there's no gas smell at all, ever, of course, because there's no gas. And so therefore there's no rainbow sheen on the harbor. It's just clean in a way that gas outboards just can't be. And then of course the noise reduction is fantastic. If you've ever been on an electric outboard, it's just astonishing how quiet they are. And that's usually the first thing that people notice and really love. So there's a lot of just sort of enjoyment of boating benefits to that, but also a lot of health benefits, especially for people who are in these boats for hours and hours every day. In terms of reliability, electric outboards motors are much simpler machines than fossil fuel powered engines. And so they don't break down as much. They do still break down, but not nearly as much. They don't need as much maintenance. They don't need as much repairing. Although I will say that anything that sits in salt water for a long time is going to notice that and feel it. So it's certainly not like no repairs, but the need for that is considerably less than with regular outboard motors. And so more time on the water and eventually more cost savings. They are still much more expensive than regular fossil fuel outboard motors. But one way that we try to think about it is when you buy an electric outboard, you're buying the motor and the battery all at once. And so it's like you're buying all the fuel you're going to use right at the beginning. And so once you make that investment, the operating costs are really minimal compared to a regular outboard. So you do have to have the money up front, but once you do, it's eventually going to save you over time. And the costs of these motors and battery systems are starting to come down as demand goes up. And then another benefit is that it's an important part of Maine's climate plan. Maine won't wait. And I know that Leah, we have a connection with the transportation part of that, which I had a note on, but if you can talk about that.
Yeah, well, we had the opportunity to meet with Joyce Taylor and the Transportation Working Group earlier this year and provide some comments to think about as they come forward with their next sort of suite of recommendations for the Maine Won't Wait version 2.0, right? How does water transportation fit into that, and how does electric marine propulsion for a variety of use cases? So we had, again, the opportunity to put forward some comments that were well received, and it's just exciting that we've been able to start that conversation. And in fact, we'll have some of her staff out on the boat you see a picture of here next week to experience the technology firsthand.
Nice. Thanks. So when we think about potential users in Maine, there's a lot of them, as you can see listed here. Our primary goal is to promote them, to promote their use among working situations, and which all of these are, but particularly we're seeing a lot of interest and kind of affinity with small scale aquaculture, especially when you think of I've been most connected with oyster farmers. They're puttering over their farm, for hours every day. And to just have that knowledge that there's not going to be a drop of gasoline getting into their farm really helps with just the overall quality of their product and marketing, and certainly for the other forms of aquaculture as well. We're also seeing it have great application for harbor masters and boatyards, like the demonstration boat that we'll talk a little bit more very soon. So there's just a lot of different ways that that it can be used for working applications in Maine. And then there are many other applications as well for bigger boats, and that's something that is not the focus of this talk, but there's a lot of ways in which bigger, more complex boats are also getting transitioned to electric or at least hybrid. So,
Yvonne, can I add just one quick thing, if you
please.
don't mind?
Yes.
So I would just sort of, as we look at this list, I wanted to make sure that people on this call understand that the Island Institute isn't advocating that everybody in these particular use cases go out and buy a system right now. We've been trying to spend time with folks that are in these various buckets to understand how they use their boat, so that we can sort of make that wise and appropriate transition away from an ICE engine to electric. So it's, again, we're not sort of advocating broad adoption at this point. It's still sort of a case by case and understanding, that a pump out boat uses their fleet very different than a boatyard does. So it's still, because the technology is new and evolving rapidly, it's not sort of plug and play and it makes sense for everybody right now, but these are the pathways and all the different types of users we have talked to, but we're taking a careful and measured approach to it.
Great, thank you. So this, I'm going to play this. It's drone footage, so there's no sound, but this is our demonstration boat. And Leah, can I pass it off to you to talk about, and I'll fill in the blanks if I can remember them?
Sure. So this, as Yvonne has mentioned a few times, we were seeking a partner in our home bay in Penobscot Bay, where Island Institute is located, and had a number of conversations with Gabe Pendleton. As you can see, he's pulling into his yard here, and you can see the solar on the roof. They have a number of electric vehicles. So Gabe's sort of approach to his business from a carbon emissions reduction and a business savings, as part of that puzzle, he made a good candidate to put this boat. So we launched this boat last June or July. I don't know, time has flown, and it's now operated in the boatyard for 2 seasons, undertaking, again, daily boatyard operations, moving people, moving gear, moving boats. And we've been able to sort of collect quantitative, but also qualitative data about the experience. And there has been a tremendous amount of excitement on Islesboro. Everybody comes by and says, "What's that? Can I take a ride?" So it's helped us elevate the conversation around this technology and its possible applications.
Thanks.
Yep.
Oh. So now we're going to shift and really talk specifically about the electric boat course. And it's a little bit of a story. It's a 2-year story. So it's still going on. So here we go. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of the course itself, I just need to talk about our collaborators. So one of the ways that we got started in this whole electric outboard course idea to begin with was when Matt Tarpey from Maine Electric Boat flagged this sort of chicken and egg dilemma, which is that one of the barriers for people adopting these boats is the fear that there isn't somebody readily available who knows how to maintain and repair them. And so I'm not going to get an electric outboard yet because I don't trust that I'll be able to get it fixed right away. And so even though it's not like we were getting calls all the time from electric outboard users saying like, I need somebody to fix my boat. We could see that this is going to be a pain point in the future, and we wanted to get out ahead of it. So we pulled together several collaborators. Maine Electric Boat was an early leader in the work for this course. Also, Ed Scott from Bayside Marine, who's a retired electrical engineer and former director of the now defunct boat school in Eastport, but just a guy with a wealth of knowledge, who's taught electric propulsion for many, many years. He just like gave us a ton of really great content that formed the base for a lot of the more technical side of the course. And then we also were able to partner with the Maine Community College system and Kennebec Valley Community College in particular. They have federal funding through the Maine Jobs and Recovery Act to do workforce training, short courses like this. So they were excited to do this, even though it was a little different from how they normally do these kinds of courses. They were game, which was great, and provided really important funding, and also technical support, especially around the curriculum design and kind of platform. And then, of course, Midcoast School of Technology, MCST, which is the CTE, Career and Technical Education, or Tech Center, Tech High School in Rockland. They are a wonderful school and a great partner, and have provided leadership and also space, and also connected us with our fabulous instructors. So this group here really helped make it all possible. And really, it couldn't have happened without, if any one of these partners wasn't at the table, it wouldn't have happened. But I want to kind of underscore the importance of MCST's contribution because of the instructors, who are just the best. And I'll tell you about them in a minute. So this is kind of some photographic evidence of our work. It was 2 years. We were creating something from scratch. And we also, if any of you have ever collaborated, truly collaborated, you know it takes time. And so we were collaborating with multiple schools, businesses, our own nonprofit, kind of reality. So it was a lot of Zoom meetings. It was a lot of in-person meetings. And it took way longer than we thought it would. But the more we got into it, the more kind of committed we were. And so we worked not day in, day out, but week in, week out, and with some in-person time, and then also some field trips. So some of those photos on the right side show visiting Maine Electric Boat down in Biddeford, collecting the donated Elco, getting that into the truck. And then the middle picture is our 2 instructors. On the left is Joel Rowland, who is the marine technology instructor at Midcoast School of Technology. And on the right is Dan Hupp, who is the small engines instructor. And I just can't say enough about how important it is to have the right instructors for something like this. These guys are really skilled educators. They are used to teaching high school kids, but they were able to scale up to adults very easily. And they also are experts in their fields. So they have that combination of knowing how to teach, knowing how to engage students at whatever age, and also knowing the content inside and out, and knowing the industry. So altogether, it was just a great team, and really quite a lot of fun, even though it was also a lot of work. As we were developing the course, we realized that there were just so many different kind of agendas and things that we wanted to cover, reasons for doing it. And we decided to kind of group the course into 2 sections, or 2 levels. And so the first level was really a general course for anybody that's just curious about electric boats. So to take people from knowing pretty much nothing to knowing something. And this course is asynchronous. It takes about 90 minutes to complete. It's available on Island Institute's website. And if you take the course and you take the quiz at the end and you complete it successfully, you will earn a digital badge, which I'll show you on the next slide. But in any case, this course, I think we've had 87 people complete it so far. So it really helps with getting a lot of kind of basic information out to people. And it's also, you know, kind of inspiring. There's lots of different stories and different applications from the outboards all the way up to some bigger boat applications as well. So that's available and was what we started out with first, and that launched in December of 2023. Then to kind of go into it a little bit more, this is sort of what the course covers. You can see the digital badge on the side there, but basically we look closely at the benefits of electric boats, which we've already talked about a little bit today. And then we look really closely at the challenges around finance, the challenges around kind of range issues. And if any of you have electric cars or know people with electric cars, range anxiety is a real thing. And then just the challenges around use case. And as Leah was saying, this is not the answer for everybody. So really helping people make sure that what they want to use it for is a good match for an electric outboard. And then we go into detail of a lot of the different uses and the history for electric motors. And then we also really focus on the opportunity for growth and look at some of the opportunities that are coming up in Maine and other places for electric boats. And one of those opportunities in the very near term is if people are really interested in this, and especially if they're already working in a boatyard or working in the field, is to take our second level course, which is here. So the second level course is designed much more specifically for a particular audience. We're really looking at boatyard technicians. And what we did was we developed a 2-day kind of boot camp style course that people could come in. It was 2 consecutive days and just really intensely learn about kind of all things electrical propulsion. This is where we get into lots of things that even though I sat through the course, I can't tell you much about because I'm I don't have a brain for that. But where we really got into the nitty gritty of how you wire these things, how you install them, what are some of the issues, and we were able to, with the help of Kennebec Valley Community College's curriculum designers, develop a website, a Google site that had all of the materials for the course, so the people who took the course could have the 2-day experience, but then they could also have this resource to take with them. Also, it was free because of the funding through the Jobs and Recovery Act. This course, and see, I'm going to be without my notes. This is pretty much what you see is what I can say. There was a great deal of technical information. In terms of the content of the course, the most important thing always for any CTE course is safety. So we spent some time just going over the safety considerations. We looked at marine electrical systems, particularly around AC and DC power. Electrical circuits, spent a lot of time on those. And during the Q&A, if you want to know more exactly about what we were covering, I do have some information about that, as well as the motors themselves, the motor systems. And then a lot of time was spent troubleshooting and sharing resources. And the resource sharing part in particular, we have a lot of links, a lot of content, a lot of great reference materials, but the people that showed up for this class were incredible resources as well. And so there was a lot of just person-to-person resource sharing around specific issues and topics in the electric boat space. So we offered this this in-person component 2 times. We offered 2 sessions, and we offered them at the height of summer, which I was very surprised to find out was a good time to offer it, but it was, because it's a relatively slow time for boatyards. All the boats are already out on the water and they haven't started coming back in yet. So Danny and Joel were like, yeah, we got to do it in the middle of summer, which was just very surprising to me. We were able to have a maximum of 12 students because there was such an important hands-on component to it. And both sections of the class filled up easily, and we had waiting lists. So the demand for this kind of education is definitely there. This just shows some of the photos of the class when it was happening in Rockland. So in the mornings, we would have lecture and discussion on those topics I just went through. And then in the afternoon, one afternoon would be sea trials for a group of students where we would take our boat down to the Rockland Harbor and actually try it out and have that, Leah speaks about the seeing is believing moment, where you get in the boat and you're like, wow, this thing really can go. So that was great. And also to see how the battery worked, how much we were using. There was an app connected to the battery so people could really track that part of it. And then it was either sea trials or labs in back at the in the classroom. And these were electrical labs, both with an electrical board for just basic understanding of electricity, and then panels as if you were wiring an electric outboard boat. So really rich learning experience. And the way the course was designed by the instructors, even though we were gearing it towards boatyard technicians, we knew that we were going to have a range of abilities and interests. And so it was designed so that people could really set their own goals and decide on the skills that they wanted to really develop over the 2 days. And then they could pick, activities that would help them get there. And between Joel and Danny's instruction and then the instruction from student to student, because some of the students in the class were extremely knowledgeable, really, really experienced people that just wanted to be part of it. And then there were others who were really new to the content. So it was great to see that connection between the students and how really generous the experienced students were with the less experienced students. Here's some photos of when we were at Foster Tech, which Foster Tech is in Farmington. So we wanted to do a session in Mid-Coast Maine, and then we also wanted to do a session inland, kind of thinking more about the lakes, because there's a lot of working applications for the lakes as well. And I love the top picture with the people gathering around the computer. Like, the students in both sessions were just so excited about this content and kind of so passionate about it. And they just were like, just really thrilled to be there and really thrilled to share lots and lots of really technical questions. But I was honored to kind of be behind the scenes helping coordinate everything. But when it came time for actually teaching, it was great to just sit back and watch just how engaged everybody really was. And another thing that was kind of cool about both the sessions was that we had a more diverse group than I would have thought. So we had a few younger people, we had a few women, we had some Mainers who were born and raised in other countries. And then we also, like I said, had this diversity of range of exposure to the content, from real experts to people that were pretty new to it. So that made for just a wonderful mix. It really clicked, and was really a pleasure to be in the room and watch the magic happen. This is where I was going to tell you about our boat, which I can do at the Q&A section. But in order to teach this class, we had to get our own boat. And that is it right there. We had the donated Elco motor, which you saw in an earlier slide, getting loaded onto the back of a truck, but there it is being used. And then we had to buy as well a battery system. So it was really instructive for us to kind of have to put together our own boat for teaching, and then to be able to sort of share that process with the students. And so you can sort of see the different ways that the boat was being used. And again, I have numbers on the cost and on the type of battery and all of that, and I can give you that during our Q&A time. I've kind of already alluded to this, but just the in the evaluations that happened at the end of both courses, the student experience was very, very positive. Most of the students, really almost all of the students, felt that it was an incredibly worthwhile experience. Everyone was able to successfully complete the assessment and earn a digital badge. And there was a lot of comments at the end of like, when are you going to do level 3 and that kind of thing. So we definitely feel like we've just sort of scratched the surface on the interest in this, the need for it, the demand for it, and just the sort of joy of learning aspect of it was also really a surprise and a highlight. In terms of just getting to next steps and our call to action, we have a couple of suggestions. One is just if you want to know more about electric boats and you haven't already, really encourage you to go to the Island Institute's website and sign up for the level 1 course that you can do at any time. It's right there, and it does give you a much more in-depth kind of exposure to all different aspects of electric boats. So that's something that you can do. Also want to let you know that we will be having a 3rd round of the level 2 course that will be offered sometime between this fall and next spring. We're still working out the scheduling, and it'll be up in Washington County at Washington County Community College. And so if you're interested in learning about that course and getting notified when we have more specific details, just shoot me an email and I will add you to our mailing list for about the level 2 course. And then the last thing is just if you like what you're hearing about this particular aspect of the Island Institute's work or any other aspect of our work, and you aren't already a member, we invite you to join and support our mission and help us support Maine's island and coastal communities. So thank you so much for listening. And again, I apologize for it not being quite as polished as it was planned to be, but let's get into the questions, and then I can stop sharing and see my notes and give you some more specific information. And thank you also so much, Leah, for being here and for pitching in. Leah's work is instrumental. The broader work on electric boats was instrumental for really adding a lot of depth and richness to the outboard course. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, Leah, everybody at the Island Institute. This is just amazing. And just a little peek behind the curtain for all of you. Maggie and I heard about this course because if we get the Island Institute's emails, you should too. And we said, whoa, that's so cool. We want to get them on to talk about this. So that's how we sort of come up with ideas for these programs. If you have ideas of really interesting things that come across your desk, please share them with us, because that's what it's all about. And we're just so grateful for the leadership that the Island Institute is showing in this really, really important area. So we will share a follow-up email later this afternoon with the recording of this program, links to the course, to the Island Institute, to a couple of great blog posts that'll walk you through all of these details, and feel free to share that broadly. Thank you to everybody who's on the program today for your fabulous questions. We have a great list coming, and so let's just dive right into it so that we can get to as many of them as possible. Feel free to keep sending questions to Maggie or to me through the chat. And if we don't get to something that you are really just itching to know, we can connect you with Yvonne and Leah directly after the program so that you can make sure to get those answers. All right, in that last slide, Yvonne, was that an electric ferry that I spotted?
No, it was a regular ferry. That was, I think it was the Margaret Trace Smith that services Islesboro, but it had a little electric outboard in front of it. And there is, and Leah, perhaps you can help us with this, but there is a hybrid ferry coming.
A full electric, as I understand, but perhaps I am not an expert in the ferry space, but I believe Casco Bay Ferry Lines is taking delivery of an all-electric. So, but I do not know the status of that.
I think you're right. And then I think there is a hybrid electric ferry being built for the Maine State Ferry Service. So they're coming slowly but surely. They're coming, and certainly they're in service in other parts of the country and the world.
Well, I see a field trip in our future, because I definitely want to take a ride on one of those. Is the boat course that we talked about today, would it connect to the land of ferry maintenance, or is that just a whole nother learning area?
Right. I mean, I think kind of yes and no. So there's some basic, especially when you think about electrical theory, the theory, Ed Scott would say, like, it's been the same since the 70s. It was the same in the 1870s. Like, it's not going to change. So, what we've heard is that a lot of people that work on boats, that know boats pretty well, know how to do stuff, but they don't know why. They don't know the electrical theory behind it. And so the idea is to try to help really get into some of that theory and then apply it. And so I think the theory part is applicable to any size electric boat, but our course was definitely focused on these smaller electric outboards.
And you're hoping, or maybe already seeing, that these users be part of the working waterfront, right? Are these typically folks, like, are the early adopters in the electric boat world the same people who are already driving electric vehicles on the road, or are those just different groups of people?
I'm going to take a stab at this one, and then I want to hear what Leah has to say. So I think because of the cost, that most of the electric outboards that you see out there are probably recreational boaters, people that can afford recreational boating, just like certainly in the early years of electric cars, it was more people that had the means to buy them because they are more expensive. So I think that's still pretty much the case, but it's definitely a shift is coming. And part of the work that we're doing is to show that even though that initial investment is hefty, we're trying to find, ways to help defray that, but that over time, the cost is actually less, and in some cases, significantly less. So hopefully that will help with the adoption more at the sort of working boat level.
And I
Nothing to
realized
add, Yvonne, that was great.
Oh,
Yeah, Leah,
I
sorry.
was just going to say nothing to add. I think that you're on point.
Yeah, okay.
I realize I said early adopters of electric boats, and that might not be true. Would you say we're still in that phase, or is this really, do you have a sense of how many electric boats are in the Gulf of Maine right now, or?
In terms of a commercial setting, I would say it's a small number, but I think one of the things that has been interesting to have a firmer handle in the last 3 years for me doing this work is spending time in the boat yards, and a lot of recreational conversions have been happening for many years. I see Doug Highland's name here on the screen. So Highland and Brown Boatyard has been doing conversions for a long time. Boatyards all across the coast, but again, more squarely in the recreational space. And again, Island Institute and the Center for Marine Economy, where I'm housed, we are all about how do we bring the tools to bear for small marine related businesses, whether it's an aquaculturist or a boatyard, to make those conversions, both for carbon reduction and cost savings and bottom line to commercial users. And as Yvonne, it's in this early phase, the complexity of how one finances and puts that together as a small business owner is, again, one of the many things that we're trying to kind of help move the conversation forward, working both within our organization and with other partners across the state.
That's where the partnership, remind me what you said about something with Efficiency Maine. Is there something in the works there?
Yes, so we are in the process of developing a memorandum of understanding. So basically designing what an innovation pilot will look like in partnership with Efficiency Maine Trust. And the ultimate goal of that is that the data becomes transparent around carbon reduction, and that at the same time with the carbon reduction, it's actually affordable for a consumer. So those two things need to go together for Efficiency Maine Trust to then sort of say, let's proceed with kind of digging into this more. So in the summer of 2025, as I said, we'll have a few more motor systems on the water is the hope, and we'll be collecting more data to prove out that case.
All right, now I'm making a mental note to schedule you guys to come back this time next year and tell us how it's going. What kind of infrastructure is required? There's the initial investment, that's dollars, but what else do folks need to successfully run an electric boat?
Power source. So obviously the depending upon the use case, if we're talking to any individual who is a commercial user, one of the first questions is, what is your access to be able to charge this? And again, depending on the user, some aquaculturist A may be able to plug their boat in and slow charge it overnight and come back down to the dock in the morning and be able to perform their given suite of work for that day with just as they would with a traditional internal combustion engine. So the question around sort of infrastructure is a case-by-case basis. And another piece of work that the Island Institute is doing and will have publicly available, I'm hoping in the next 3 to 4 weeks, is kind of a full coast assessment of what charging infrastructure looks like across the coast. So we have data from the utilities, we've got boat registration data, we've collected all these sort of data pools, aquaculture leases. So all these different layers that will help us inform and understand where perhaps there are opportunities to lean in a little bit more at sort of higher charging levels versus lower charging levels. So that there's more to come about that. But, for example, Rockland Harbor, our home harbor, on the pier, there is level 3 charging. So perhaps that becomes a site where we could have multiple boats, perhaps with higher, faster charging needs, kind of accessing that charging infrastructure. But a aquaculturist on a rural peninsula is going to have different access to the grid, different access. So again, we're trying to get a big picture handle on it so that we can be smart and targeted as we kind of move into more and more adoption of electric motors for commercial uses. I don't know if I answered that question well enough, but.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and just without assuming that they're the same plugs or anything like that, I'm guessing that it's the same sort of levels where level 3 charging is the fast charging, just like with your
Correct.
EV. Level 2, you'll get the full charge, it just takes a lot longer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so a level 3 is you need 480 volts, and then a level 2 is 240 volts, and a level 1 is 120 volts. So, and again, yes, there's a lot of parallels for those that are familiar with electric cars. And something like, for example, an electric ferry is going to need a level 3 special plug, fast. Okay, we've done our route, we've got 15 minutes to charge before the route runs again, and we've got to do that. I think that we're finding most of the use cases that the Island Institute is focused on can function perfectly fine at level 1 and level 2.
We have a whole bunch of questions about safety that I think I'm going to ask all of them. But first, I'm going to start with this sort of, it's so interesting to watch the way all of our brains work, right? That we have the safety issues that we're used to because they're just part of the technology that we've grown up with. And then we ask a lot of really important questions about safety for new technologies that maybe we don't have good answers to for the legacy technology either. So with that little editorializing, let me dive into some real questions here. Saltwater and electricity, discuss. Is there anything that we need to be to think about here?
Yeah, I can. So first of all, I can't really answer that other than to say, like, yes, it is an issue. It was something that was talked about at length during both sessions of the in-person course. And I think I'm not even going to try, but it has to do with conductivity, but basically, especially in marinas and places where there's a lot of electricity going on anyway, it's just incredibly important to be mindful of that. And I think you're right. It is something that's been an issue for a long time, and we have a lot of safety concerns with the technology that we have. But we're used to it, so it doesn't feel as freaky. This feels a little different, but I guess what I will say is that safety is just a huge consideration, but like with all safety considerations, once you understand what the risks are, you understand what the steps are that you need to take in order to mitigate those risks. And then you decide, like, can you live with the risk? I mean, those of us who get in cars and drive every day, we've decided we can live with the risk that those pose. So it's not a specific answer. And if the person if any of you with real specific safety questions, especially about electricity, I'm happy to take them if Kathleen, if you want to email them to me, or if there's some way of doing that. Our instructors who I hoped could be here today, but it's the second day of school and they were like, yeah, no, we can't step out. But it's definitely a ginormous issue that we spent quite a bit of time discussing. And there's just so many scenarios. What if you do this? What if it's that? So it's hard to give a super general answer other than to say, yes, huge issue, really important to understand, and then decide how you're going to manage it.
Yeah, and maybe I could just add very quickly in terms of the larger this systems conversation, as we, kind of the Island Institute is advocating for this technology as a tool for businesses. We did sort of a roadshow, and I can think of a specific individual when we were up in Machias, who is the emergency services coordinator, and we, a long, thoughtful conversation about how they are kind of trying to deploy and access resources to understand and work with EV vehicle fires. And then, what are the opportunities to share the learning from that into the marine space as more and more of these systems show up on the water. So another thing that we're very aware of and trying to bring the right people to the table to have the conversation.
I should have known you guys would be right on top of all of that. And I think it's really, it's important, right? Because there are real concerns, but there are also these sort of sticking points that say, I just can't get comfortable with this as long as I have this concern in my mind. And one of those that we've talked a lot about in the electric car world, but must be relevant here too, is the sort of range anxiety, right? Of how far can you go with an electric motor, and what do you do if you run out of a charge? Your buddy can't come out with the gas can, right? So is there a way to do a on the water charge, or is that just not even an issue because the range isn't an issue? Shed a little light on that.
You want me to go, Yvonne?
Sure. And I can from just what I learned in the course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts. Yes, range anxiety is a legitimate concern. So back to thinking about the commercial application component of this, that's why we're being very careful about understanding how any given user, because we don't want to promote somebody to make the switch and then have it not actually serve the purpose. So, there is a level of support and kind of diligence that needs to happen before it's judged that it is a good fit for, again, a commercial user. And part of that is understanding how that person runs their boat. What is the distance? How many times did they do X, Y, or Z in their day? And then the other thing I think I would add is that these systems are pretty smart. As I have experienced them, I can think of one manufacturer, it kind of has a trigger. So as your battery starts to run down, it'll ramp down how fast you can go. So these systems are, in many ways, it's not peering into the bottom of the gas can, that dark hole that many of us, or you got to find a dipstick or make your own, that the real-time feedback that you experience with one of these should help allay some of that concern. So those are two things, and I'm sure there's more to add, but maybe Yvonne's got some other pieces.
Yeah, during the course, the battery that we have, which is I can tell you, it's an Epic LifePo 4 48 volt 100 amp hour, costing about $2,400. So that was the battery that we had in the boat. And it was brand new battery, brand new system. Like, we did not know how it was going to go. And we needed to be able to do at least a couple of hours of not racing, but just like getting out on the water both days with time to charge in between. And there was an app that we could use to monitor it. So that we kind of set the expectations with the students, like, we don't exactly know, we're pretty sure we're good, but we may not be. So we're going to learn together. And I think to what Leah was saying, like, it's very important for people to get to know, if they do make the switch, to get to know it before they set off. And essentially a very simplistic learning that I got during the course was, if you need to be going at top speed, you're not going to last very long. And if you can go slow, you can probably last quite a long time. So it really, that getting back to that use case piece, that really matters. But I think even when the second day, when we were out there longer, maybe we were out for an hour and a half just puttering around, I think we used maybe like 30% of the battery's capacity. So we were surprised. One of the instructors was like, I got to get out on the water and like get this thing to, not to zero, but I got to understand, like where the energy gets used up and how. And then for us, we're in a rigid inflatable boat. So we have oars and we're not going out that far. And for a lot of use cases, that just getting back and forth to your bigger boat, that kind of thing, even if you did run out of power, you're still in the harbor. There's still places where you can either row to or somebody can tow you in. So, but it's definitely a consideration.
So for all of these things that are going to be an adjustment for folks who have been on the water and been working on the water for a long time, are you seeing anything about this transition actually attracting people who aren't yet working on the water, but who say, ooh, an electric boat, I might be interested in aquaculture after all? Is that happening, or am I just dreaming?
I can answer that a little bit because I work with high school students, and especially so many high school students now are very tuned into, the climate crisis and just what's happening in the environment. And so anything that feels like it's a step away from fossil fuels is interesting. And so I think that demographic, there's probably a bit of that. Also, younger students are just trying to figure out what they might want to do and just kind of following what seems interesting, and then getting maybe to the point where they realize, oh, this really isn't as interesting as I thought it was. But I think it's a real attraction for younger folks that are trying to figure out what kind of workforce pathway they want to go on, that this could help draw them in.
And maybe just one additional comment to that, thinking about sort of younger generations or people being attracted to electric. We spent the day talking about electric boats, but it's part of a bigger conversation around how do we convert Maine's working waterfront, given what we saw happen in January. How do we support municipalities and businesses to think holistically about electrification as a possible tool? So just, and that's where I feel like when I get in those conversations, yes, people are perhaps new or excited about this idea of electric boats, but when you start talking about the bigger picture and the bigger vision for a more kind of climate friendly working waterfront in Maine, I feel like people who aren't living on those working waterfronts get excited as well.
All right, so we're definitely having you back next summer to talk about the electric boat progress, but we're also going to have to schedule a climate-friendly working waterfront. We already have the title for that program. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Yvonne. You know so much about things that I don't know anything about, but I find fascinating, and that's the name of the game when it comes to this Lunch and Learn series. So thank you for being with us today. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Keep an eye out for that follow-up email later this afternoon, and plan to be with us in this time and space next week, because your favorite meteorologist and mine, Keith Carson, will be with us. So don't miss it. There'll be information about how to sign up in that follow-up email as well. Until then, have a wonderful weekend. See if there are any electric boats out on the nearest working waterfront and hitch a ride. Let us know how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.